Hello, everyone. This is Lauren McCart here from the Early Careers team at Optum, and I'm really excited to introduce you guys to two of our guests today on our first ever podcast series. Welcome to Mute Your Lines. Today I have two guests that I've gotten to know really well, and the topic is really relevant, I think, for today, especially as we've onboarded and welcomed 500 interns a week ago, kicked off our program virtually for the first time ever, and we just welcomed about 150 full-time associates into the Early Careers program this week. So really great timing for this topic. Super excited to have these guests. They come highly recommended from leaders and colleagues alike, and I will have them introduce themselves. So they are two Early Career Program alumni and a current associate, and we're going to talk a little bit about an internship and their experience. So first, I'd love for you to hear from them and have them introduce themselves. So I'll hand it over to Tim. Please take a minute and introduce yourself.
All right, thanks so much, Lauren. Hey, everyone. My name is Tim Yoon. I am with the Population Health Solutions team on the Strategy and Innovations team over there. I'm out of the Boston office, even though I'm from the Bay Area. I am super excited to talk with you all today. I started off my undergrad at Duke University, didn't know what I wanted to do, so I went to Accenture to do some tech consulting, and I really fell in love with the healthcare industry during that time. And so I went back for my MBA at Duke to focus on healthcare and social impact. And a lot of things worked out where I got to join Optum, both an internship program and a full-time rotation program that they have for post-MBA individuals. And so I've been on that since then. It's been a super exciting ride so far.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's funny, Tim, as you're sitting at home and I'm at home and we're used to passing each other in the hallways at the office. And I mean, how has it been shifting over to this virtual space for you?
It's definitely been different. I'm actually in Pennsylvania right now, so if we're going to talk about being all over the country, I've been staying with my fiance's family in the suburbs of Philadelphia. But I feel very grateful that I have a place to stay, that I get to be with my fiance and her family. And we've made it work. We all kind of have our own sections of the house to be in. We try not to get into each other's ways too often. And we've made peace so far.
Awesome. And so speaking of being virtual and being in completely different places, we are going to send it down to North Carolina and hear from another friend and colleague, Vatsal. If you could take a minute to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Lauren. My name is Vatsal Shah. I have actually been with Optum since, I can say, 2016. I did 2 internships up in Boston office, and I started my full-time TDP role in Boston as well. And I've been on a lot of different innovation projects there. And last year, I moved to North Carolina, and I'm working as a full-stack engineer, and I'm working in the Optum Care division right now. And it has been great. I'm looking forward for the session to share some of the memories, some of the learnings I have had through my internship, as being here twice, meeting and networking with so many different people. I've just learned a lot, and I'm grateful I get to share this with all of you guys.
I know, it's funny, Vatsal, as you're saying, you've been here since 2016. It feels like so long ago from your first internship when we opened the doors in Boston and there was me and 75 interns. And it's really cool to just see your transformation over the last couple of years too. It was a great segue, and you told us, Vatsal, a little bit about a couple of internship experiences that you've had with Optum, and I'd love for you to just go, you kind of, skated the surface there, but can you talk to me a little bit more about, those specific internship experiences, even if you want to just pick maybe one summer and speak to that time with us?
I had a great experience, but some of the learnings, if I had to share with you guys, was the first time we did an internship. I remember one of the back and forth argument we had with one of the shark, and I hope it's okay to say his name, but Don Johnson. And it was my second internship in a corporate culture, and I was just so stuck on going with one technology. And I was like, hey, we can do this. We went through one Shark Tank and we kind of introduced ourselves. And then the second Shark Tank, I had a demo and I showed it with my manager, and I could sense my manager was not too happy, but he's like, yeah, you want to present it? Go for it. After the Shark Tank, I almost was broken up. I was like, oh God, I guess this is the last job I will ever have. But one thing I learned from that was it's good to get feedback from sharks. They might seem intimidating initially, but they have a lot to teach. Being curious as an intern is kind of common, but one should be asking questions. One should be trying it out if you're really that curious. And one feedback I can take from that was active listening and implementing that. Because often in that 10 minutes or 15-minute presentation, they will speak for 5 minutes and they will have so much because they have had that exposure. So listening and not taking the feedback negatively has helped me a lot, not only in Optum, but when I went back to college, I learned I need to listen before I start answering a question.
And it's really cool, Vatsal, to hear. And I feel like I remember that conversation around, what was it, using PHP for the, I remember being in the room for that conversation. And I'd love to say, if Don Johnson is out there and listening, hello, and we still appreciate the learnings that you gave our interns 4 years ago in our first ever year of Shark Tank. But I remember that conversation that the team had with him. No, that's great. Thanks for sharing those learnings.
So it's funny because I was only an intern 2 years ago, and I remember doing internship programming back before quarantine times. And so there was actually a talk set up in one of the UHC buildings, and I was in the Optum building finishing up some work, and I realized I was running late to this executive sponsor talk. So I was freaking out because I didn't want to make a bad impression. So for those who aren't as familiar with the campus, there's these buses that can take you from one building to another. So I get in line to get on a bus. It's me and another person. And I look at my watch and we get in the bus, and the bus driver turns around and says, I'm so sorry, but the bus broke down. And now I'm freaking out, like, oh no, I'm going to be late to this thing. And just, have the awkward walk of shame in the back. And so, the other person and I are just kind of laughing, and we start to make small talk. And the other person reaches out his hand and he says, hi, by the way, I'm Norman. And I'm like, wait, this name seems familiar, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. And I realized 2 seconds into that conversation that this was Norman Wright, who at the time was the Chief Operations Officer of Optum, now the Chief Customer Officer. And I just happened to be in the same bin as him. So one, make sure you listen to anyone who's sending you internship program news. It'll save you some headache. Two, more importantly, I was just so impressed and taken aback by just how personable Norman was during that ride, because I was just some random person who just happened to be on the bus with him to eventually go to a talk that he's speaking at, and he's the main attraction. But he spent the time just asking me questions. He let me ask questions. He spent some of that time actually texting with his son, who was going through some interviews and providing advice. And so, especially with how big this company is, it just really made a profound effect on me to see, one of our leaders taking that time to add that personal touch, to see just how they're really concerned for anyone that they meet. And I can see how that happens through the decisions that they make. I've had opportunities to talk with Norman since and ask him some harder questions about, how he thinks about things. And I've always see that personal touch in everything. And so that was definitely a memorable experience for me.
I'd love to talk a little bit more about that, because I think that's something that as an intern, maybe it's your first internship, or, Tim, to your point, you want to make a good impression. You want to be on time and always show up. Can you talk a little bit about some of the obstacles or maybe challenges that you've faced? And Tim, that can be as an intern or even as you've entered your career, as an early career program associate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now that I'm in my full-time program, I've already been on 2 rotations now across population health solutions currently and then Optum Care before. But in both of those areas, I've been in that same situation of, shoot, where do I even begin? But, one conversation can lead to another person that can lead to another person. And it's really helpful to piece together everything, take a step back and be like, oh, this is how it can move forward. And, I can look back at the first 4 weeks where I was just freaking out and be like, yes, I freaked out, but because I was trying to move forward, things were able to work out in the ways they worked out. And so it's definitely hard to see it in the beginning and in the middle of things. I'd be lying to say if I don't feel afraid even now. Those sorts of experiences have definitely given me a lot of reassurance that a lot of people want to help. And it takes a little bit of, reaching out and taking that leap of faith.
I mean, can you think about, Vatsal, a time, similar to what Tim was talking about, can you think about a time where you just hit that wall that maybe was too high to climb?
I absolutely can. But this was in 2017 internship. This was like second time I was coming back. And as most of you guys will be familiar, we're always working on an innovation project and going through a Shark Tank. And I think we were in middle of the internship, and we were presenting, and hate to keep bringing up Don Johnson, but he was there with us. And what had happened that time is I don't think he was there in all the presentations. And he heard about our idea of augmented reality and what we were trying to do with the insurance card, and he didn't find value in it. And I think it was like the second or third Shark Tank, and we were like, oh God, what do we do now? Like, okay, does this mean we have no project? Does this mean we are just going to work on anything they give us at the end and we'll sum up the internship, and what would we put on our resume? Without even thinking about what the actual problem was, we just went completely sideways, and we were like, okay, what now? So kind of what Tim said, we were all overwhelmed. I'll be lying if I wasn't. And what helped the most at that time was like first to digest the news and then start reaching out to people. Definitely it started with our manager, and then he started pointing people out to us, even including Lauren. At one point, we were just like, Lauren, we need to talk to you. We don't know where to go. And she pointed us like, okay, have you guys thought about this scenario? Have you guys thought that you explained Don Johnson what you were trying to solve? Because it's that 10, I keep harping on the 10 or 15 minutes, but it's just a few minutes, and you have worked on it for 2 weeks, 5 weeks, but sharks haven't. They know the problem statement, but they don't know all the effort that you have put in. So it was a big obstacle, and the way we came out of it was we started thinking, okay, he didn't get the answer of this is our actual business case. This is how we are going to bring in the value. We covered it in our slide, but it was like 2 lines. This is the revenue we're going to generate. Can someone grasp that? No, I learned that in a very hard way. I cannot sell you a product in 2 minutes. But that also means as a leader, they're looking for your success along with the company's success. It's not just like, okay, the company is not going to make any money, we're not going to do anything. We were able to set up time with Don Johnson later on, like several times after that. And he walked us through what he meant. He walked us through what more research we should be doing. So it was great, overwhelming for sure, but networking. And I know now it's kind of hard because we are all virtual, but I've seen leaders in North Carolina who I'm close to, their doors are still open. You give them a ping, you give them a shout, and they're like, hey, let's jump on a video call and we'll talk about it. So I think that's a great advice that Tim had, like, make sure you guys network.
Awesome. So my favorite question to ask friends, colleagues, what do you know now that you would tell your 19 or 20-year-old intern self?
So especially for my professional career, I would say it's okay that you don't have things figured out yet, but make sure to work hard to figure out what you value. And so, I think for me, being able to ask myself, why do I want to do things? And if I don't know necessarily why yet, working hard and meeting different people and really challenging my assumptions and my upbringing and my background and the things that I used to understand, and saying, what if I'm wrong? And that's okay. And being willing to grow in that.
I love that, though. And I think the points that you hit on for your why, right? It's not just a professional thing, but it has to fill you up personally a little bit too. You have to believe in the mission and the work that you're doing. You have to believe in your leaders or the team that you work for, right? Even if it's not a perfect fit all the way around, it doesn't mean you're not going to have frustrating days. But I love that. I think your 19-year-old self would value that advice. And I will pass this over to Vatsal, same question for you.
One thing that I learned and I'm still learning is professional and personal life. Often they are mixed up together, but make some time for yourself. Work is always going to be there. Don't be afraid to fail. Be curious, and always make sure you're talking to others and sharing what you want to do and sharing the confusions you have.
Thank you so much. You are tuned into episode 1 of our first ever early career program podcast series, Mute Your Lines. We will feature different leaders, alumni, interns, early career program folks across the duration of our summer. And again, big shout out, big thank you to Vatsal and Tim, our first guests, early career program alumni, intern alumni. They have done it all and continue to do it all. For more information on development opportunities and opportunities to digital journal this summer, to ensure that you continue to, as Vatsal and Tim said, develop yourself, not only professionally, but personally as well. Thanks again for your time, everybody, and have a great day.